Hello and thanks for joining us for another edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Mitchell Ringos. There was no news as of Friday afternoon in the search for a Cessna plane that went missing between Akina and Admantung First Nation on Tuesday. 2 people were on board the ZAM Air flight, but their names have not been released. A large number of organizations have scrambled to assist in the search and rescue effort. Lee Noonan has more.
Conditions were good again in the search area, but so far nothing has been found along the planned route of the missing plane owned by ZAM Air Services or its 2 occupants.
All we know at this time is that we want to saturate the area with our search aircraft. We search from different altitudes, different angles. We have fixed-wing aircraft as well as helicopters, which each bring a different perspective on our search, so we're maximizing that.
The task force is made up of Air Force and Coast Guard personnel joined by the OPP and Ministry of Natural Resources and the Casera Civilian Air Search and Rescue Association. 4 Casera volunteers flew to Thunder Bay from Niagara with a specialized search and rescue plane.
This is a Cessna 337, has an engine in the front, engine in the back. Very safe aircraft, very safe platform. We have a camera up here and another one on the other wing, and what those images, we turn the camera on before we leave, and then it just takes an image every 2 seconds.
The Casera plane can cover roughly 1,000 kilometers before needing to refuel. After they return to headquarters, volunteers analyze the images using a program called Locate, which searches for minute specks of color that wouldn't be visible to the naked eye. Searching for the dark blue and teal of the missing ZAM Air plane, humans have to analyze the images flagged by the software. So far, everything they've found has turned out to be a false positive, like this blue tarp thrown over a vehicle. But the volunteers continue undaunted, combing through thousands of images. The Air Task Force in Thunder Bay coordinates with search teams and ensures all the logistics are taken care of so the various aircraft and personnel arriving and taking off can focus solely on their mission, finding the plane and the 2 people on board.
When they return to Thunder Bay, everything is coordinated for them, whether it's parking, the aircraft, hotel rooms, fuel, and all those needs.
Major searches like this are not frequent, but Grattan says the teams train constantly and are ready to respond when they're needed. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The deaths of 3 people, a couple and their young daughter, have now been confirmed following a devastating house fire in Pikangikum First Nation last week. This week at Queen's Park, Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa addressed the tragedy.
Vernie Turtle, 44. Kristen Moose, 38. And Kendriana Turtle, 8.
The 3 victims are survived by a teenage girl who escaped the blaze. According to a statement from the First Nation, Pikangikum peacekeepers were unable to douse the flames as the lack of adequate building for their 2 fire trucks caused mechanical issues in the cold weather. Chief Shirley Lynn Keeper calls the government response unacceptable, saying, quote, "We have never felt so hopeless. Our ability to fight structural fires has not improved since 2016. A family of 9 died in a fire in March of that year."
There on Saturday, the house was still smoldering. After 3 days, Speaker, because they do not have the capacity to put the fire out. This government needs to commit to a fire hall for Pikangikum so this does not happen again.
I have suggested that in certain instances, if there's an existing fire hall, Mr. Speaker, we would be prepared to support that. But we can't do this in every single community without the full cooperation of the federal government. And I think we acknowledge here today, Mr. Speaker, that fire response, the capacity on reserve, Mr. Speaker, is something that remains a challenge for the federal government.
In a written statement, the spokesperson for Federal Minister Patty Hajdu called the number of fires and deaths from fires on reserve, quote, absolutely unacceptable, adding that the minister's office is planning a fire safety gathering in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, both levels of government are assisting the Independent First Nations Alliance in providing community support. The Ontario Fire Marshal and the coroner have begun their investigation into the fatal fire. Anishinaabe Grand Chief Derek Fox is responding to his sudden suspension by the NAN Executive Council earlier this week, and he's calling for a snap election by the 49 chiefs for a potential show of confidence in his leadership. Few details have been released so far on the reason for Fox's suspension. NAN has confirmed only that an internal investigation was launched due to alleged violations of the NAN Executive Council Code of Conduct. The Executive Council includes the 3 deputy Grand Chiefs. Fox released a statement on social media Thursday saying, quote, "I have been wrongfully and possibly defamed by statements that are untrue. I've asked the NAN chiefs to call for an election of the entire executive. I propose an election be held in the next 60 to 90 days. The future of NAN is critically important and we can't be distracted from this. I trust the chiefs to resolve this." Fox was elected Grand Chief in August of 2021 and has confirmed he would run in the proposed new election. NAN officials declined to comment on Fox's statement and the likelihood that a new election might be held. Federal Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson made a massive funding announcement on Tuesday at a Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce event. The $35 million investment will be going towards the White Sand First Nation near Armstrong to help create a combined heat and power facility using locally sourced wood waste to produce energy for 3 communities.
I'm very pleased to announce that the Government of Canada is investing $35 million in Sagatay cogeneration to build a forest biomass-fueled combined heat and power facility.
Right now, the energy microgrid from the Armstrong area requires an annual diesel consumption of over 1.3 million liters. The federal investment will greatly reduce those fuel needs while also driving down energy costs and emissions. The Sagatay Cogen project was first submitted for funding consideration in 2014, and it's finally been approved. Once operational, the 6.5 megawatt facility will connect to the local microgrid and provide power to White Sand First Nation and the nearby communities of Armstrong and Collins. Wilkinson frequently spoke about the need for clean energy during his visit and says this project will help get this region closer to net zero.
It's a project that will be First Nations led, will create economic benefits, will create employment benefits, and is actually going to help us in our fight against climate change. So it was a really, I think, a really important step forward, and I was very pleased to partner with the White Sand First Nation to do this.
White Sand Chief Alan Gustafson says they have been planning this project since 2008 and have recently worked with Resources Canada to close the gap in funding needed to move forward. But now with a $35 million investment, Gustafson is excited for the future.
This will help us big time with the biomass, the pellets. The backup would be fuel, but it'll be the pellets and the cogen that's going to help the community.
Wilkinson also took time to talk with Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce President Charlotte Robinson and others who had questions at this luncheon. Robinson says it was really important to have him here as natural resources are a cornerstone of our economy and says this announcement for White Sand also helps the city.
Thunder Bay is the hub where most of those services and supplies tend to come from. So it will likely be Thunder Bay businesses that are doing the construction, providing the supplies and the services through that construction process, and then even servicing it once it's actually into operation.
At the moment, there is no timeline for completion of the cogen facility, but this funding is a big step forward. It's a step towards getting all of Northern Ontario to have access to quick and reliable internet. The $61 million investment by the federal and provincial governments will bring high-speed internet to another 16,000 homes across the north. The announcement includes a partnership between the Northwestern Ontario Innovation Centre and T-Baytel, which will work together to bring fiber internet to rural parts of the region. Some of those benefiting are the municipalities of Nebing, Shunya, Oliver Papoonge, and Ignace. Federal Minister Patty Hajdu made the announcement and explained how crucial being connected is these days.
The long-term positive benefits are going to be felt for decades. And, you know, as we look at how rapidly business is transforming, education is transforming, the service of healthcare is transforming.
And then our role moving forward is in a project management and reporting standpoint, working with our partners at T-Baytel.
So we're eager to get started. In fact, we have already gotten started. Approximately 2,700 homes that we expect to pass over the next couple of years, and very excited.
This announcement brings the federal government one step closer to their goal of giving all Canadians access to high-speed internet by 2030. Resolute Forest Products is now owned by Domtar and its parent company, Paper Excellence. The successful closing of the acquisition was announced this week. Resolute owns sawmills in Thunder Bay, Ignace, and Atikokan, along with the pulp and paper mill in Thunder Bay. That mill is currently for sale as a requirement of the acquisition. That mill has around 430 employees, and there's no word on a potential sale of that operation. Also this week, Domtar announced the sale of their Dryden pulp mill to First Quality. According to Domtar, the American multinational company has committed to keeping the mill operating. That sale was also a requirement of the Resolute acquisition. After the break, 8 arrests in a massive art fraud investigation with implications here and around the globe. Welcome back. 8 people have been arrested in a high-profile fraud case involving fake artworks claimed to be painted by the late Norval Morrisseau. Investigators with Thunder Bay Police and the OPP announced the results of a 3-year-long probe at a news conference in Orillia on Friday. Jessica Clement reports.
Thunder Bay Police began the probe in 2019, the same year that the documentary titled There Are No Fakes was released. Then, in 2020, a major case manager with the OPP Criminal Investigation Branch began leading the investigation of the alleged production, distribution, and sale of fake artwork falsely attributed to the late Norval Morrisseau. Now 8 people have been arrested and are facing a total of 40 charges. This includes Gary Lamont, a 61-year-old Thunder Bay man who has been arrested numerous times and described as a serial sexual predator by a Superior Court judge. The other local suspects are Diane Champagne, Benjamin Morrisseau, a nephew of Norval Morrisseau, Linda Tachuk, and alleged fraud originator David Voss. The other 3 suspects are from Southern Ontario. Detective Sergeant Jason Ryback says the scam started with Voss back in 1996.
He developed a group of individuals that were producing, creating the paintings in Thunder Bay and then distributing them across the world. And in 2002, Gary Lamont got involved with another of creating paintings outside of the Voss group. The big difference is Gary took advantage of 2 Indigenous artists, one being Benji Morrisseau and one being Tim Tate, who is in the documentary There Are No Fakes.
Detective Inspector Kevin Bayou spoke about the case on behalf of the OPP.
As we progressed and we saw the extent and the size of the fraud, the different groups involved, and what they did to manufacture, distribute, sale, yeah, it just grew exponentially, and I think surprised us all at the end.
Police believe around 4,500 to 6,000 paintings were created, with some being sold for tens of thousands of dollars to unsuspecting members of the public. However, Ryback says they're unsure how much money was actually made through the scam.
We came up with a number, and again, it's a hypothetical number in the sense that, around $15,000 per painting would be reasonable. Again, I think that's on the low end. If you do the math, you're up around $100 million. And so we believe that this is the biggest art fraud in world history.
We know that they went and were distributed across Canada, into China, into Germany, they're in the US. So there's just no way of knowing.
The U adds that any new evidence could lead to additional charges. Police encourage anyone who believes they may be in possession of a fraudulent work of art to contact a lawyer or the Law Society of Ontario. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
A transport driver near Ignace has apparently gotten off with a warning following a scary incident last weekend on the Trans-Canada Highway, which was caught on video. According to eyewitnesses, the driver of this tractor-trailer was spotted crossing the center line numerous times between Ignace and Uppsala. This footage, recorded last Saturday afternoon near the English River, shows the big rig completely in the oncoming lane as it rounded a curve on Highway 17. The driver turned back into their own lane, just barely avoiding 4 other vehicles coming in the opposite direction, including another tractor-trailer. An OPP spokesperson says members of the Ignace detachment responded to a complaint and conducted a traffic stop. The driver was issued a written warning under the Highway Traffic Act. A new leadership team is taking the helm for Ring of Fire medals. That includes the appointment of Kristen Straub as CEO, bringing with him 25 years of experience in the mining industry. Straub comes into the role at an important time for Ring of Fire Metals that currently holds 22 of 26 identified mineral resources in the region. The company's first mine planned to be developed is the Eagle's Nest nickel and copper deposit. Straub says that project is a massive part of the company's plan moving forward.
We have a deposit today that we see that if we can get into production, will serve us to produce roughly around 15,000 tons of nickel for a life today that we see that's out towards 20 years. And that's for the nickel copper PGE deposit that we have in Eagle's Nest. There are a number of other targets that are out there that we're continuing to explore for today, and we'll continue to support that exploration into the future.
Straub also says the proposed Northern Road Link is a crucial project for Ring of Fire Metals, which will have to move forward with collaboration among Indigenous communities. We'll be back in just a moment with a story about 2 teams of sled dogs and the humans who had led them to glory, the 2023 Canadian Challenge. Welcome back. A mushing family from Sioux Lookout has brought home the gold and bronze from the 2023 Canadian Challenge dog sled race. The 200-mile race is the only one of its kind between Quebec and the Yukon. Lee Noonan has more.
Longtime musher Jesse Terry is the champion in the Canadian Challenge 10-dog race for the second year running, while relative newcomer Mary England placed third. The couple share a passion for the dogs, who they say deserve all the credit.
I always love talking about how amazing these animals are at what they do, and their passion to move down the trail in a pack with us holding on the back of the sled is an absolute amazing thing to be a part of.
Terry's team of dogs are experienced competitors, while England led a crew of younger, yearling dogs. She finished third behind Rhonda Hirschap of Nullaloo. England also won the coveted Veterinarians Award for the best kept team.
Oh man, it just is such a vote of confidence. I feel like Jesse and I both work so hard to make sure the dogs do stay well and healthy and enjoying their job and their life with us.
For both England and Terry, caring for the dogs is central to their roles as mushers, making sure the canine athletes are still excited to be running after racing for hours and even days. Terry's first place team took 33 hours to complete the run.
Tails are wagging, the dogs are happy at the end of the race, and you would never know that they just ran 200 miles or well over 300 kilometers to cross that finish line in first place with an average speed of 10 miles an hour for the whole time.
After placing third in the 200-mile race, England opted to challenge herself and her team by continuing an extra 100 miles, a journey that took a little over 3 days.
Wandering through muskeg and forest land of the boreal forest onto lakes, and the dogs, you know, you can hear their breathing, you can hear the patter of their feet, you could hear the whooshing of the sled. You're all tucked in. It was minus 35, minus 40 for most of the race. And so, you know, you're just a cozy little nook and about 4 layers of jackets and a big parka. And for me, it's the most peaceful time I've ever experienced.
The rookie dogs proved themselves more than up to the challenge, and next year they'll have a chance to try out for the senior team and a very real chance at a championship run. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
In an effort to clear the air regarding the proposed Waasigan transmission line project, Hydro One held an open house in Kaministiquia on Thursday afternoon. The utility had hoped to answer any concerns local residents have about the preferred route for the new high-voltage power line. As Kurt Black reports, while locals were pleased to have Hydro One come and listen, some question why it took so long.
Ever since its announcement, the Waasigan transmission line project has met plenty of opposition from those in the Kaministiquia area, which is why Hydro One representatives were back in the community Thursday for an open house, where a number of experts from various areas of the project were on hand to answer questions or concerned about the planned route, which currently crosses right over some 200 properties and homes. Sunny Karanakaran, Director of Strategic Project Delivery for Hydro One, says the feedback they continue to receive from the community is essential in finding a remedy that appeases both sides.
The details that we're able to get into in the actual committees and so forth will allow us to actually make the refinements that are necessary, right? And find like a collaborative solution that's going to work for the residents as well as Hydro One.
Karanakaran adds that they will be meeting with a local resident committee for the first time Friday morning to get a better grasp on how the two sides can work together. But while the residents we spoke to were pleased that Hydro One has come to the table, they are left wondering why it took so long.
We're a little late into the game, but we're in the game, and we've done a lot of homework. Our committee here has done a lot of work behind the scenes. I think they have some good viable alternatives, so let's see where it all goes, and that's where we'd like to see it go. So we're not one of stopping progress, but we still want our quality of life at the end of the day.
They mentioned they've talked to 1,000 people and they've had 10 open houses. Not once did they come to one of the most impacted communities, to our hall, to do an open house. I am not sure how to look at that in any other way but to see it as calculated.
Michelle Hamer, One of the main organizers of the Neighbors on the Line group believes if Hydro One truly wants to work with the community, they should put a hold on any further real estate acquisitions until a route can be agreed on.
Until they say there's a moratorium on real estate acquisition and they're actually going to be talking about moving the line, I don't see that we're going to have any type of resolution.
The two sides will meet again Friday morning at 10 a.m. back at the Kaministiquia Community Center. Kurt Black, TBT News.
And that's all the time we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.